Welcome, everyone. I am so glad that you are back with me today. If this is your first time, I'm so glad that you've joined me. Today, I have a special guest with me, and she is going to share her story and one of her journeys that she has walked through over the last several years and how God has really helped her to walk that journey. And today with me, I actually have my youngest daughter named Jesi. She goes by Jess. You want to say welcome?
Hi.
I am glad that you decided to come and be with me today. What we're going to talk about today is something that Jesi has felt very strongly about sharing. And it's a difficult subject to talk about, but she wanted to come on and talk about it because she feels like there is a lot of people out there that could hear her story and know that you can come from a really bad circumstances and situations and overcome that, especially with God being in your life and helping you to walk through that. So, Jesi, I'm just going to let you kind of share some of your story. Her story starts kind of back in when she was in high school. She's out of high school now and been out of high school for a year. And she's just going to kind of talk a little bit about her story. Why don't you just kind of start with where you were, what grade you were in, and tell a little bit about your backstory, not just about the relationship, but a little bit about your health too.
Okay. When I was a freshman in high school, the day after my 15th birthday, I started having what are now to us non-epileptic seizures. And I later got diagnosed with PANS, which is a rare autoimmune syndrome. And because of that, it made things really hard, especially in high school and navigating everything. And on top of me having these new health issues that I didn't know how to navigate, I was also in a very toxic and abusive relationship from my freshman year to my junior year. So
You want to kind of tell people when you're saying about toxic and abusive a little bit about what that looks like? Because some people don't think that something's toxic or abusive. They think it's normal. And that's kind of what you felt like at the time that you were in that relationship.
yeah, so I think for younger people, even some older people, you may be new to relationships and you may have been raised around not very good examples of relationships. So the one I was in at this time, when I say it was toxic and abusive, I mean like we would break up every other week. He would cheat on me all the time. It was very mentally abusive. We used to put each other down all the time. Sometimes it got physical on my part. It wasn't good for either one of us. It was really, really bad. And so our junior year, I had just turned 17. It's when things really took a toll and it just got bad.
And you want to talk a little bit about what you were going through. You had really severe anxiety and depression, and you were having a lot of mental health stuff go on at the time, but it was also causing you to have a lot of seizure episodes back to back to back. And
yeah, so my junior year, things really escalated with my mental health. My depression was at an all-time high. I was battling with anorexia, and my anxiety was so high to the point where some days I couldn't even really get out of bed because it was just too hard to even step foot outside. And so obviously I had to go to school, and just at the time I couldn't handle being around a bunch of people. So it made my body go into non-epileptic seizures because that's how I guess my brain and body have chose to cope with the such high anxiety and the depression and everything.
And you were going through a lot of that, and then you wound up in the hospital because of the seizures. You were in the hospital for about a week, And when you were in the hospital, you kind of took a turn for the worst, even though we were treating you physically.
Yes, I had about probably 4 seizures back to back, and it was mainly caused by stress due to my breakup with my toxic ex, and a lot of other stuff was happening with that, so it sent me into a spiral, and I was in the hospital for about a week. And while I was in the hospital, my depression just got really, really bad, but I didn't want to let anyone really know that it got bad, even though the signs were definitely there.
And then you went back to school. And what happened when you were going back to school? You were having problems with the ex-boyfriend and his new girlfriend.
Yeah, so I went back to school even though I was advised not to because I'm really stubborn and I just said I'm not going to let someone take that away from me. But it ended up not being the best decision because my ex and his new girlfriend that he left me for started bullying me and harassing me and would just not leave me alone. And it made things so much worse to where I just felt like it was like I couldn't handle it anymore.
And we did a lot of talking, and you were going to counseling and had been going to counseling for some time to deal with the health issues that you've been dealing with and all the anxiety and the depression, but you were really struggling with that. And at this point in what was going on with you, you didn't want to have anything to do with God, right? Because you felt like what? You want to talk about that?
Yeah, so during the breakup, I was very attached to him. So whenever everything was happening and I was seeing a different side of this person that I guess I hadn't opened my eyes to see before, I felt like my whole world came crashing down and I really didn't understand why this was happening and why God was allowing it to happen because I really believed at the time that I was supposed to be with him, which was completely incorrect. So there were a lot of nights where my mom would come into my room and I would just be on the floor, bawling my eyes out, couldn't get up. There was a lot of screaming involved. It was just a lot of pain. And I was going to counseling and I had moments where I was okay and I felt like I could conquer the world. And then the rest of the time, I couldn't even get out of bed because I felt like nothing was ever going to get better.
Well, tell me a little bit about what happened after you got out of the hospital, about a week after you got out of the hospital.
So, about a week after I got released, I remember the exact day. It was December 20th, 2022. I ended up attempting suicide, and I'll go into detail about the day because I feel like it's necessary because I remember it. I was supposed to hang out with one of my best friends, and he happened to be down the street eating with his family. And I had texted my ex, which was not the best idea, but I was just so young and just wanted to talk to him. I texted him and I found out that him and the girl were officially dating, and I felt like my heart had gotten ripped out of my chest. And I always say it was definitely the tip of the iceberg for me. So earlier that day, I had convinced my mom to leave the house because I had told her that I was fine, even though I feel like I had a feeling I was probably going to end up attempting. So I convinced her to leave, so I was by myself. And after I found out that news, I ended up texting my friend who I was supposed to hang out with that I could no longer hang out because I needed to do something with my mom. And irrationally, I broke into my mom's room. I broke into her closet and found some medication. And I just started texting my friends saying goodbye. And one of them, the one that I was supposed to hang out with, since he was so close, he rushed over to my house as soon as I said goodbye, and I turned off my phone or pushed it to the side so I couldn't see anyone, and I took the medication, just laid down, hoping that it would work. But before I did any of that, and when I broke into my mom's room, I was quite literally screaming at God crying, just saying that I wanted to be home with him because I couldn't take the pain anymore. And so after all the yelling and stuff I did at him, that's when I just laid there, took the medicine, and really felt like I was giving up. I left a note for my family, and then a couple minutes after I had laid down, my best friend, he went inside, he barged through our front door, was looking for me, and then a couple minutes later, my mom came running in, and they were all looking for me, and they found me on her bathroom floor, and my mom started getting the pills out of my mouth. My friend was calling the police, my brother showed up, everyone was here, and they took me to the hospital. And when I woke up, I heard some nurses saying some not nice things about me and my attempt, saying that it was just for attention. And that made me just not want to be here even more. And I already didn't. So that entire time when I was in the hospital, I was just really angry because it didn't work. And I just didn't understand why I was having to feel this pain when I cried to God that I didn't want to have to deal with it anymore. I feel like I was very disassociated. I wasn't really there. And so they sent me to the mental hospital in San Angelo. I was there for a couple of days. I got released right before Christmas Eve, and it was a really hard day. It was my last Christmas with both of my grandmothers. I was unaware of that at the time, and I was not even really present to enjoy it being the last ones with them. And my family was acting really weird around me after whenever I showed up at Christmas Eve, which made me even not want to be there and not want to be here still. And a lot of people don't know this, but while I was in the mental hospital, I was so determined to get out because I just hated it there and it was really traumatizing that I manipulated and convinced the doctors there that I was perfectly fine and that I didn't want to commit suicide again, but I very much still did not want to be on this earth. So I managed to convince them that I was fine, and that's why I was able to be released after 2 days of only being there. And then I showed up to Christmas Eve with my dad's family. They all barely acknowledged me, and I ended up going outside and crying because it made me feel really unloved and like, why am I here if these people that are supposed to be my family don't even love me? I felt the same way with my siblings, and my friends and everything, because I guess everyone has a hard time showing their emotions. So it made things a lot worse. And so I would say about a week after I was finally home from the mental hospital, I woke up and I decided, yeah, this is actually going to be the time that I attempt and it's going to work. And so this entire day, I just had plans. I had everything planned out in literally every little detail, down to how, like, just leaving my phone unlocked if they wanted to get pictures off of my phone. Everything planned out. And so that night, I had managed to collect medication because my mom had left for a couple minutes and I found where she was hiding the medicine, and I got a whole cup full, probably half a cup full of just different medications, and I hid them in my closet. And that night I grabbed them and I was sitting outside in the backyard because I always go out there just to listen to music or whatever, and I just started crying to God and just being like, I need to know that you're here, or I can't do this anymore. I need to just know or feel that I should keep going, or else I'm going to take my life and it's going to work this time because I quite literally have no hope anymore. And as I was sitting out there, I just felt some great peace and just hope that it was from God. Just, I feel like He was telling me that I just needed to still keep going, even though it was really, really hard for me to do that at the time. So I walked in the house and I went in my room, grabbed the pills, and I gave them to my mom. And rightfully so, she was mad at me. But then after that, I slowly really started healing and I really started leaning on God because at this point he was my only safe place. And so I really, really started leaning on him. And that's when I started to actually get better and find joy and peace in life again.
And this was a really struggle for me too, just even listening to her recap what she's gone through. But Jesi, talk about, I mean, the night that you brought those pills in, I knew God had just spoken to me and told me that you were thinking about attempting again. And I think I shared this with you. And I just started praying and praying. And I even went to look in her closet and stuff when she had gone outside, but I couldn't find anything at the time. And I was just praying, Lord, just cover her, let her feel your peace, let her feel some hope, let her see you in some way. And then it wasn't too long after that, probably about 20, 30 minutes or so, when she came in and she handed me that jar of pills. And you said I was really mad, but I wasn't super mad. I was upset at first, but then I just started thanking God that He just answered your prayers, answered my prayers, answered both of our prayers. But ever since then, you still had some struggle, and you still had a little struggle with your health and stuff. But just kind of talk about what God's really done with you, and especially in this last year, and how you have just really gotten closer to God, and how He's done, and the things that He's done, even recently, what you've done, what He's done.
So over the past 2 years since then, I feel like God has really decided that this was my time to really grow and He was going to change me. But it wasn't until recently that I really started to allow Him to, because I had some bitterness and stuff that I needed to take care of. So a few months ago, I was going through a breakup again with someone that I really, really care about. It wasn't a bad relationship or anything, so it didn't set me off when we broke up. But I was still sad. So this is when I really started leaning on God. And I had started leaning on God when I was in that relationship. We went to church together. You know, in a way, He started kind of bringing me closer to God as I was trying to introduce Him to God. So when we broke up, I was like, God has always been the place that I can go when I'm in my most pain. And so that's when I really started leaning on Him. And since then, it's been a journey in these past couple months, but He's really started to change me from the inside out. I'm definitely not the same person that I was even back in like July last year. I'm a lot more calm. I feel like I'm more loving. Not that I wasn't before, but I feel like I'm just a lot more open to love now, which is kind of weird considering I've been going through another breakup. And I really believe that He's just healed me of the trauma that I went through my entire life. And I've been able to let go of a lot of it. I'm still working on it, but I've been able to do that. The anxiety that I've been feeling hasn't been as strong. Like, I barely ever get anxiety anymore. I'm just a lot more calm. But like I said, it hasn't been easy, and I have had quite a few struggles just these past couple months. The devil has very heavily been attacking me spiritually with just awful thoughts that have made me contemplate attempting again. And about a month ago, I was really debating whether I wanted to attempt again or not. And I had planned it out. I did, but whether I was going to go through with it or not, I wasn't sure. And God just spoke to me and made me realize, He still has bigger plans for me. And I don't need to give up on that, because ultimately He is going to come through for me. And even though things seem hard right now and the spiritual warfare hasn't been fun to deal with and everything, that just means I've really been getting closer to God, and that brings me peace in a way to know that, and just to know that God's got me right now in this very moment.
So, talk about what you've done that has really helped you. So, one of the things that's really helped you through this whole episode recently, with even thinking about contemplating again, because, that comes from what the devil wants to talk to us all the time about. You don't want to be here, and you can't handle this, and you can't do that. But one of the things that you started doing was just saying, no, I'm not going to do that. God has a purpose for me. But besides that, you kind of leaned into your new friends and finding new friends that love the Lord.
Yes, so I took this new season in my life as an opportunity to really just go for and get boldness to do things that I wouldn't have done pre-breakup, which is I now have a job that God blessed me with, and it's a really social job, which if you know me personally, I tend to be really shy and reserved, so that's shocking. I now am teaching dance, which I never thought I would be doing, and I volunteer out at the Refuge, which is a horse riding place where I live. And I also started going to a college night at this church, and I've met some amazing people and have made some amazing friends, which has been such a good light in my life considering everything that I've been battling recently. So it's been really good.
So with all your struggles and everything that you've gone through, and I've watched you go through it, and so as a parent, my thing would be to say to lean into God as much as you can and get support. What would you say?
I would say this. So whenever you're in that place, in a dark place where you just really feel like you don't want to be here anymore and you have nothing else to live for, know that it's always better to be grateful for even the little things. That really helped me even when I've been going through dark times. So recently when I've been having some really hard times, I've decided to sit here and be like, you know what? I'm thankful that I now have a job. I'm thankful for my dog. I'm thankful that God even woke me up another day because, that just really means that He has plans for me. And I'm most thankful that I have started to make new friends, which has been obviously really good for me. But I would also say that the thoughts that you're having are not of you. They're not your thoughts, and they're also not from God, especially if you're having, just a lot of thoughts that make you question everything and whether you should be here or not. Those are not of God. Those are of the devil, and you need to just decipher that and tell yourself that. And it has taken a lot of battling these past couple of months with the enemy just trying to get in my head and make me doubt literally every single thing, that those thoughts are not of God. And now when I get them, I have really started to just be like, no, I'm not doing this with you today. And what has really helped me this past couple of weeks is already declaring that God has won the battle over my mind, and Satan has literally no authority over me, because we can literally tell Satan to go away in Jesus' name. We have the authority to command him away. So that has really, really helped me. But if you're in that dark place where the enemy is just making you battle and question every little thing, just know that the enemy wants to get in your head. He wants to make you doubt everything. He wants to make you confuse and question everything, even question your worth. And those things are not of God. God brings clarity and God brings peace. So if he's making you question those things, it's obviously not of God. And that has really, really helped me, especially when I was contemplating suicide again recently. I've just known, God really does have a bigger purpose for me. and I've gone through all that I've been through, so that way I am able to sit here and help other people who may be going through some severe spiritual warfare in their head, or they're at that point where they feel like they just can't go on anymore.
One of the things, Jesi, that we need to probably mention as we get close to wrapping this up is that some people do deal with having actual physical chemical imbalances that go along with the depression, that cause the depression and the anxiety. And so we don't want to dismiss that, and we want to make sure that people also know that, you know, if you are having depression and you are having anxiety and you're having the severe thoughts and darkness, to also seek help with a therapist and a doctor as well, because we did do that for you. And so we want to make sure that people also include that as part of their walk with God along the way. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we close this episode today?
I would mainly just want to say that this has really stuck with me and has helped me through a lot, and people have probably heard this, but my doctor told this to me after I tried to attempt when I was 17, is that you cannot solve a temporary problem with a permanent solution. And that has really stuck with me, because if we really look at it, every problem that we face is going to be temporary. It may last a couple years, but it'll come to an end eventually. And we can't just go running to things that are easier to get out. We have to keep going because it's temporary. It all is, and it will get better. It may not be tomorrow or in a month, but you just got to know that no matter what, it will get better, and God will bring you through it always.
That is so good, and I'm so glad to hear you say that, because that's one of the things that I did say, but she listened to a doctor say it to her, and it stuck with her, and I'm so glad that it did, and I hope that what she said will also stick with you.
Also got another one that has really hit me hard recently, is that if you have letters to write, then you have a reason to stay. And especially recently when I've contemplated, that has really, really hit me hard, because I have lots of letters to write. I would have had lots of letters to write again, but those should be your reasons to stay if you have nothing else.
And if you didn't understand what she meant by that, she means the letters to write to all the people that are in her life that would be affected if she wasn't here. So that's one of the things that you need to think about as well, too. We thank you so much for listening today and being with us today and allowing Jesi to share her story. But one of the reasons she wanted to share her story is she feels like this is one of the reasons that God still has her here, is to be able to talk, that somebody else would hear her story and understand exactly what she said. That you have a purpose, you have value, you have a reason for being here, and you may not know it right now, but there is a purpose and there is a reason. And we just ask that if you have any questions, or you're struggling, or you're having a hard time, that you can reach out to me on this podcast, and I can connect you with somebody that could help you, or we could pray with you, pray for you, pray for your family or a loved one. And we also ask you that if you have an emergency and you feel like you just desperately need somebody to talk to, there's always the suicide hotline that you can call and talk to somebody, or call and talk to a pastor at your church. Get somebody to talk to if you really need somebody to help you. We thank you for listening today. Please be blessed, be encouraged, and be a ripple in somebody's life today. Would you like to say something before you leave? Goodbye, and we will see you next time. Thanks for listening.